We got Say No to Next Gen. Now, Scott Noir is an interesting character. Dude's kind of a bitch-made beta male. But he also does have a lot of really good points. So let's see what this is all about. Say no to next gen.
Just say no to next gen. You know, we are currently at the point where normally we would usually be talking about next generation consoles, but it just does not feel...
Are we really? Hold on, are we really? There's no way. When did the PS5 come out? It's been almost 6 years. It's been almost 6 years. Holy shit. How has it been almost 6 years and that bitch ain't got no games still? Like, how it been 6 years and all that bitch got to opt for his Code Violet? He's right, we would almost be talking about next-gen systems at this point. Dude, I knew that this generation's consoles have been dog shit and irrelevant. I didn't realize so much time had gone by that we're already on the precipice of when we would normally be talking about next-gen. Oh my fuck, bro.
Feel warranted at this point. And that could be for numerous different reasons. I mean, let's go back through the history of video game generations. A concept that I think is only really known by schmucks like us. I've talked to many of my friends who just aren't really that interested in like following video games like I do. And they're generally like, I didn't even know there were such a thing as video game generations. So to be honest...
What? Maybe it's because I surround myself with gamers, but like, I've never heard of people not understanding that. Like, even parents know the difference. It's like, oh, the Xbox 360 was the old thing, and now my kid wants the new thing. What's it called? The Xbox One? Like, even if you don't know what's called a generation, you understand the concept that we get new, upgraded versions of consoles.
Honest, I'm not really sure if this mindset really applies to the general consumer. I think the general consumer, when they see a PlayStation 6, they'll be like, oh gosh, it's a PlayStation 6, I want that. But the
yeah, I would say that he's correct. Like, the general consumer, now, it's easier with PlayStation because they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very easy to wrap your head around the concept of console generations when you don't use dumbass naming conventions like Xbox 360. Okay, that makes sense. Xbox One. It's a little odd. Xbox Series S. What the fuck? Like...
General sentiment I see many have online, and one that I do share as well, is this feeling that the current generation just hasn't really even gotten started yet. Which, like I said,
okay. We 6 years in. They're losers. It's not even that it's not gotten started. It's that when the gun fired for the race to begin, these motherfuckers were passed out from a night of drinking in the goddamn locker room.
Agree with, but it's also like, on paper, you know, it's kind of hard to argue that sometimes. Because to be honest, at the very least, the PlayStation 5 generation is kind of going pretty similarly to how the PlayStation 4 generation went. A lot of people look back at the PS4 and go, wow, oh my god, so many games that generation. And yes, but in the first...
The PlayStation 4 had more games in its first 2 years than the PlayStation 5 has ever.
First half of that console's lifespan. Like, I almost feel like some people kind of forget the PS4's launch lineup wasn't anything to really write home about. In fact, in many ways, I would say the Xbox One's launch lineup was better than the PS4's. I'd argue the PS4 didn't really hit its stride until like 2016 or so. Before that, a lot of the stuff that was kind of releasing was just a lot of re-releases and remasters and...
Alright, to be fair, I'll give him credit for that. That's true.
Cross-gen titles. But I think around that 2016 mark, not only were we getting a lot of good exclusives on the PS4 and also the Xbox One, but also just a lot of like good games in general. It kind of felt like that generation fully started to like, all right, things are finally off to the races. You know, we got Uncharted 4, Ratchet and Clank, Horizon Zero Dawn in 2017. Now, even The Last Guardian finally released. And honestly, around 2016,
and nobody fucking cared.
That's when I think we started to finally shift fully away from cross-gen titles that were also releasing on Xbox 360 and PS3. You know, before then, in 2015, 2014, we had some incredible games like Metal Gear Solid 5, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Wolfenstein, Dragon Age. But of course, they also released on the previous generations, which I don't necessarily think is like this massive point against them or anything. But, you know, at the same time, when I'm playing a cross-gen game, it is kind of on my mind that what I'm playing is not necessarily like, oh yeah, this is really using this brand new console that I bought. But I'd say around the 2016 mark, I'd honestly say when we saw like Doom release and then onward, I think a lot of the
which doesn't hold up, by the way. I tried replaying Doom 2016 a few months ago, and I messaged Hypno directly about it. I was like, yo, this game kind of sucks. Like, dude, Doom 2016 was fucking awesome when it came out. I tried replaying it a few months ago. I got like 2-3 levels in. I was bored out of my fucking skull, dude. It just does not. Now, Doom Eternal is still good. Doom Eternal is a step up in every way, shape, or form. Doom 2016 don't hold up.
Plats that we're hitting, we're like, all right, now we're finally in just the 8th generation territory now. So I'd say we had about 3 years of growing pains, I guess you would call them, for the 8th generation of consoles there, which is pretty lengthy, all things considered. You know, you look back to the 7th generation with the Xbox 360 and PS3, and yeah, so the Xbox 360 launched in 2005, PS3 in 2006. We were still getting games on the PS2 for years to come. Hell, we got FIFA 14.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure they kept putting out, I think they kept putting out PlayStation 2 games in like 2014 or something
on the fucking thing. But I think that was a lot more indicative of just to come. Hell, we got FIFA 14.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, FIFA 14, I believe, was the very last game for the PS2, which was 2014.
I think that was a lot more indicative of just how well the PS2 sold and the fact that the Wii was a part of the 7th generation and shared kind of a similar technical prowess to the PS2. That's why you saw during the 7th generation a lot of Wii and PS2 multi-plat games. But by comparison, there really wasn't any original Xbox or GameCube games releasing after their successors launched. Like maybe for like a year there, but that was kind of it. So the PS2 getting support for as long as it did was more of kind of just like a special situation. The 8th generation
okay, bros, the thing is possible we'll be seeing PS5 games for another 3 years. I don't understand how you could say that. PS5 doesn't have games now.
Kind of normalized a much longer than usual cross-gen period where the previous generation was being supported well into the next generation. And then we saw that even harder with the 9th generation with the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Oh, that was even a big point when Microsoft was prepping the Xbox Series X launch in 2020. They were specifically talking how this generation is kind of different, how they're not really looking at this as a generation. Rather, this is kind of a continuation of the Xbox One, I guess. And for a while there, the Xbox Series X didn't really ever have true exclusives. Like basically every game Microsoft was releasing for the thing was cross-compatible with the Xbox One line of consoles. And I think this has always been kind of an interesting debate to have because on one hand, this is nice for the consumer because you're not necessarily being told like, hey, you need to upgrade to this brand new console.
Yeah, but it's not nice for the consumer. Like, I get he said on the one hand, so he's going to have another point here, but I'm just going to reject this premise that it's nice for the consumer to begin with, because the constraints on development when you're making these games, the constraints on creativity, the constraints on originality, it's all so mind-numbingly simple that, look, yeah, it's nice that I don't have to buy the next $600-700 console or whatever, but by comparison, then why'd you fucking release it? What's the point of it even existing? Like, I just don't think that is good for the consumer. And even if you can make the argument that it's good for the consumer from a financial perspective, it's terrible for the consumer when it comes to the quality aspect. Like, hey, quantity or quality, pick one. And they chose quantity. We don't see innovation the way we saw from like PS1 to PS2 to PS3 or SNES to Nintendo 64 to GameCube.
Like if you have an Xbox One, you can play all these major games releasing, at least for the time being, on that console instead of having to shell out $500 for a brand new one. At the same time, like, what incentive do I have buying the brand new piece of hardware? And the mindset that, oh,
Exactly.
if a game is cross-gen, that's not going to hold back the next-gen releases or anything.
See, yeah, he's made. I think that negative far outweighs the positive, which is why the positive isn't really a positive for consumers.
I think is stupid. Now, I'm no game developer. I don't know shit about how any of that works. But I think it's only logical to know that, like, yeah, if you're creating a game and you have to keep in mind that this game needs to run on 10-year-old hardware, you're not going to fully design the game to take full advantage of this brand new hardware. Like, yeah, you're going to be able to do some nice things with the new hardware, graphically and technically speaking, but no, you need to always keep in mind this game needs to be able to run on ass-old hardware. And, like, I feel like every company has said this to an extent. Like, I know somebody who worked on God of War Ragnarok said that, oh, the game was never restricted by the PS4 hardware.
I call bullshit. And now you may have made the argument that, yeah, it wasn't restricted by the PS4 hardware. It was restricted by all the morons in the dev team that were DEI hires that don't know how to make an actual fucking game. But that's neither here nor there.
And it's like, that might be true. And I feel like they are telling the truth there. They are literally just saying, like, what we wanted to do, like, we were able to do on PS4 and PS5. But it's also like, yeah, this is a sequel to a PS4 game. I just feel like you can't deny this giant cross-gen period definitely limited or at least heavily postponed us seeing what the PS5 could really do. Because for the most part, the PS5 has been a very good graphical experience in my opinion, but when I truly put it side by side with PS4 games, it's not like this massive difference.
And yeah, look, graphics have plateaued, dude. Graphics have plateaued. I could not give a fuck less about. In fact, I think graphics plateaued. You could say when the PS4 era, when the 7th gen hit, because like the upgrade from PS3 to PS4 was kind of irrelevant to me. Like most of the games that came out, yeah, they might have looked better, but that ceased to be a selling point. Like between the PS2 and PS3, like PS1 to PS2 was a massive jump. PS2 to PS3, not as massive, but still notably better. By the time we get to PS4, it's like, okay, it's marginally better. Like, I can see how this is better than PS3. Enough to spend all that money? Not really. I just didn't see, I don't see a relevant reason. I guess I'll just never understand people to give a fuck about graphics. Like, obviously, now I think art design and art direction is very important, but you can have brilliant art design that's very cartoony and whatnot and still have good graphics because you've got, you know, better fidelity and things to that effect. Graphics are just, it's irrelevant. I was playing Flesh Made Fear last night. Flesh Made Fear is by design supposed to look like a PS1 game. That's fine. It controls like a modern game. Now it's got tank controls, which I fucking love. It controls like a modern game made with tank controls would be. Visually, I wouldn't want it to look like a modern game. It's the whole niche of the game is to reinvigorate the love for the classic PS1 era of survival horror. So like, yeah, I don't know, graphics, unless it's a game that is 100% based on realism, which most of those games aren't very good anyway, I don't give a fuck about graphics, and I don't know why people do.
10th generation has felt like a smoother, faster version of the previous one. But here's the thing. I think that's good enough. I have no problem with that because even looking back at certain PS4 games, if I look back at Uncharted 4, if I look back at The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy...
Yo, we got Zareel here for a 5-banger. I remember the 90s. That was a wild... Exactly. We saw the greatest graphical changes in the 90s and into the early 2000s. Like, again, the Super Nintendo into the Nintendo 64 was just... And then, the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube? Bro, I get that was, you know, like 2001 or whatever, so it's not really the 90s anymore. But the point is, from like 92 to like 2001, 2002, the graphical leaps were insane. The idea, the graphical leaps did make the consoles worth it, because there was shit that just would not have been possible unless, like, Resident Evil 4, one of the greatest games of all time. That game would not work on the Nintendo 64. You want to know why? Because they got an iPhone version. And what was the iPhone version? Basically a glorified Nintendo 64 version. And it's dog shit. Yeah, the graphical leaps back then were actually worth the money. Nowadays, I just don't fucking care. That being said, we need to give you a clip. Shout out, thank you for the 5-banger. Let's play you a clip. Let's go with this one right here.
Call it whatever, but if I made $1 for each time I made a racist joke, I would actually have $0. 'Cause I'm not joking.
Based? Based? Hello?
Shout out, thank you for the 5-banger, dude. Truly appreciate it.
Fantasy VII Remake. All these games still look amazing. And yeah, the PS5 versions of all of these games run better. The PS4 versions pretty much all ran at like 30 frames per second. And some of these games, like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Ghost of Tsushima, did get sequels on PS5 that looked and ran even better. I think my point is, when I look at all of these games, whether they're the originals that started on PS4, the PS5 re-releases, remasters of those PS4 games, or the PS5 sequels to those PS4 games, I think...
Yeah, but let's be real. The re-releases that come out on PS5 or Xbox Series X or what, it's just to pad the library. That's all it is. It's just to pad the library. Because if you have a PS5 and you're not like 8, odds are you had the PS4. And if you had the PS4, odds are you had these games, because they were massive, heavy-hitting, well-selling games. So if you already had the game, and then you get the PS5, and the PS5's library is just a padded fucking library of re-releases, you don't even fucking need the game again.
Just start to think, like, what do we really need?
And yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake visually is stunning. It's too bad it's a dog shit fucking game and an ass remake of one of the GOATs.
Brand new hardware? And I think the release of the PS5 Pro really kind of made everybody start questioning that, because the PS5 didn't necessarily feel like it was struggling in most cases. Where some games, you have to choose between performance or fidelity mode if you want to do 60 frames per second or you want to do 4K visuals. And that's kind of a situation where it's like, okay, I guess. Like, yeah, PS5 Pro eliminates having to choose between performance or fidelity mode in a lot of cases. And I think my thing is, like, yeah, maybe I need a crazy ass TV to be able to see a lot of the differences. I think the PS5 Pro is overkill in many instances. But
yeah, again, that's another thing. Just because your hardware can do it doesn't mean that your TV, like, I'm gonna be real. Since I play everything on PC, I use 2 old ass TVs. Like they're smart TVs, but they're like 10-year-old smart TVs, right? I'm not getting no fucking 4K, and that's fine. I don't really need it. Like, when I'm playing these games, there's nothing that would incentivize me to buy a whole ass new 4K TV or whatever to get like the best visual quality out of this game. It just, I don't see an incentive for that. Why should I drop several $100s? Because the sweat on Barrett's gonna glisten a little bit more. That's irrelevant to me.
even when I see where it kind of succeeds, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like, runs really well and looks really good on the PS5 Pro. All right, I'll concede that. The normal PS5 version of that game notoriously had a really rough-looking performance mode. Like, yeah, you get 60 frames per second, but it looks like ass. So even when I wouldn't recommend a PS5 Pro to most consumers, I will at least acknowledge that, like, yeah, like, across the board, you get the best running and best looking version.
Sir Lordy says his frame rate over fidelity, period. Here's my hot take. Here's my hot take. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this. If it's a single player game, I don't even care about frame rate. Dude, I'll be real. Yeah, I get people bitching about 30 FPS and whatnot. 60 FPS should be standard. But, like, even 30 is playable if it's a single player game. It doesn't hamper the mechanics or anything like that, by and large. I'm pretty sure, wasn't the PS2 30 frames per second? PS2 FPS rate. Oh, wait, no, it was. Okay, it was 60 frames per second. My bad. So, yeah, 60 can be the standard, right? 60 can be the standard. That's fine. But, like, all in all, now, if it's an online game, obviously it's different. If it's an online game, obviously different. You want max frames per second because you're playing online. You're playing with other people. There's stakes and what. But if it's a single-player game, I truly don't even care all that much. We got Zexrel, or Xrahel, sorry if I'm butchering that, for another 5-banger. It went from Can You Run Crisis to... What an OG reference. Can You Run Crisis to Can I 60 Frames? Based. Let's get y'all another clip.
Name one word that starts with G pronounced like J. Gentrification. Shoot, should have thought of that. I was just in San Francisco.
Shout out, thank you to the 5-banger. I'm sure many of you could, because Xrel, I think it was you or someone earlier said it was your first time in my stream. Your boy, a bit of a Sonic fan. Yeah, shout out, thanks for the 5-banger.
Of these games on console, okay, but then I have to
play your games on a 27-inch monitor at 1440p. Save thousands of dollars. You can thank me later. What's the average cost of a 27-inch monitor? Now, mind you, one of the reasons I use so my TV that I use for monitors are, say, probably 36 inches, something like that. 36. Maybe they're even 27 inches. I don't know. In fact, my TV might be 27 inches. I like somewhat larger screens because I don't have the greatest eyesight. You know, I wear contacts, and even then, my contacts aren't quite up to snuff. But yeah, no, I don't know how much that costs. I've had these TVs for years, so I don't know the cost. But no, shout out. What up, ABF?
Ask. Now what? What do we truly need in video games moving forward? Why do we need to spend another $500, $600, $700 for the next piece of hardware to play the next generation of video games? What could these...
You say 42. Now the TV that I watch TV on and shit, the one that's in my bedroom and the one that's mounted on my wall in the living room and whatnot, those are bigger screens. Those are like 42 to 56 inches or whatever. But not what I'm using on my PC.
Video games possibly do or look like to warrant spending that amount of money and leaving this whole console generation in the dust. And don't get it twisted. These companies, they want to do a new generation. It's not about if it's completely warranted or not. Like, literally, if Sony puts out a PlayStation 6, that's millions of units sold and hundreds of millions, billions in revenue right there. More games get sold. The brand gets like a huge spike in popularity and word of mouth again, all of that. It definitely benefits them in the short term to move on and to do a new generation of consoles. However, I do kind of worry that moving on to a next-gen console when it doesn't feel really warranted just makes it a lot harder to be passionate about what...
He is exactly correct. Like, the apathy is set in not just because of the lack of games on current consoles. And technically, you can apply this to PC if we're talking about AAA games. You can apply this same thing to PC if we're talking AAA games. It doesn't matter if you had a, like, massive library on these consoles and on PC when it comes to AAA games, because it goes back to a quality over quantity argument. Even if they gave us quantity, there is no indication whatsoever that the quality would be better or improved. In fact, it would likely be worse given the state that modern games release in nowadays. So yeah, the idea like PS5 has no games, which is a meme, but it's funny because it's true, sort of meme. Even if it had a bunch of games, it would just be PS5 has no good games. Well, then why would anyone want a PS6? Because the apathy is set into like, oh great, we're gonna get more mid to bad games with like 2% graphical increase. Like,
what's going on in the game industry, which is something that I've seen happen to a lot of people and something that I've felt a bit myself. Like in the recent year or so, I haven't really given a fuck what goes on with the PS5 and specifically the Xbox Series X. I couldn't care fucking less about that thing. That doesn't mean I don't play my PS5. I've been playing Ghost of Yotei and I love Ghost of Yotei. I really enjoy Mafia: The Old Country. I am definitely interested in finding...
Hold on. Let's roll this back.
Xbox Series X, I couldn't care fucking less about that thing. That doesn't mean I don't play my PS5. I've been playing Ghost of Yotei and I love Ghost of Yotei.
I wish I had the beta mail clip, bro. I wish I had the beta mail clip.
I really enjoy Mafia: The Old Country. I am
Nobody enjoyed Mafia: The Old Country.
definitely interested in finally giving Claire Obscure Expedition.
He's glazing Yote and Mafia, but hasn't played Ghost of Yote. Bro, you lost all credibility.
33 a shot. But like when it comes to watching the state of plays, I'm pretty fucking spotty with those things, man. I don't give a fuck half the time. So if in the next year they announce a PlayStation 6 and it's going to be the same old song and dance as before, but now things are going to be even worse because if games are already taking forever to release on PS5, you know for a fact they're going to take fucking even longer for the PS6.
Yeah, but look, that is due to incompetent devs. That's not just because, like, oh, the hardware is so advanced, it's so difficult to... No, it's because of fucking incompetent devs. Like how long was Expedition 33 in production? Hold on, How long was Expedition 33 in development? Okay, 5 to 6 years? Alright, okay, that was actually longer than I thought, to be fair. I guess it was longer than I thought. It's still technically an indie game, right? Still technically an indie game. How long was Resident Evil 4 Remake in development? 4 to 5 years? Alright, so that was less, right? That was less. How long was Battlefield 6 in development? Approximately 4 years. Yeah, like, a lot of this to me just seems like incompetency. Or incompetence, I mean. Fuck, incompetency. Incompetence. Because if we got a game, a console that's been out for, we're on 6 years now. If you had talented devs, they should have been able to be working with that hardware and getting this shit out 2 to 3 year turnaround time. 2 to 3 year turnaround time. This is absolutely an incompetency issue. I cannot come up with any other explanation, because when you look at you know, again, let's see. Let's go back to the GameCube era. How long was Resident Evil 1 Remake in development? 14 fucking months. This is now, the Resident Evil 1 Remake was a brand new game built from the ground up, right? This isn't just a port of Resident Evil 1 that they got to run. It was a brand new game built from the ground up. 14 months. Let's do Resident Evil 4, which was also on the GameCube. Oh, no, not Remake. Oh, yeah, that was 5 to 6 years. Okay, fair enough. Five. Well, actually, yeah, but it went through multiple restarts. The Resident Evil 4 might be a bad example, because it got scrapped and redone like 2 or 3 times. So let's do another. Let's do Halo. Let's just do the original Halo. Approximately 4 years. And that was on brand new hardware. The bigger the team, the more trouble. Facts. Shout out. Thank you for the 2-banger, dude. Facts.
So then we're going to have another console with even bigger gaps between releases. And yeah, like, I'll get the next PlayStation. I'll always get the next PlayStation. But I think what's starting to just kind of like fade away is this overall passion for everything going on with these console brands, which to an extent I feel like is an unhealthy parasocial relationship with plastic. But I just kind of feel like that kind of love and passion about PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo is what keeps this kind of subset of being a fan of video games so engaging. I look back to the PS4 era and when Sony did the PlayStation experiences, which was pretty much just these fan events for them to do like a secondary E3 showcase where they go up on stage, they make a ton of announcements, and a lot of these announcements were much more fan focused. Like, there were portions of this where they were like, oh, and this game is coming to the PlayStation Vita, and they showcase like the Vita during a time in which it was even farther past the grave. It was like at the fucking Earth's core. But as time went on, Sony just stopped going to E3. They took a page on and
I agree with ABF completely. Look, I know a lot of motherfuckers will say exclusives are dead. I know a lot of motherfuckers hate exclusives. And understandably so, right? Because you want to be able to play, Crash Bandicoot or whatever, which I guess is Xbox now, but you get my point. It was predominantly a PlayStation IP for years, like on their PC and shit. I understand the argument from both ends, but you've got personality when you have exclusives. Like, you've got a brand when you have exclusives. You got characters and series and IPs and franchises that you can look at and be like, yup, that's that brand. That like Halo was the Xbox. Dude, they got Halo coming out on PlayStation now. Look, I'm glad Halo fans that have rejected and abandoned Xbox are going to be able to play Halo on the PlayStation. That's cool and all. But there is a loss of that because fanboy wars keep fandoms alive. It is incredibly important to keep fandoms alive. There's a reason that Star Wars versus Star Trek always been a thing. Goku versus Superman, Sega versus Nintendo. Like, fanboys going to war with each other it is an authentic, natural, organic way of keeping fandoms alive and the discourse between them. And because it's not like arguing over politics and shit where there's actual stakes, right? The fate of the fucking country is at risk if you've got a bunch of dumbass leftists and passive ass right wingers. That's more than fanboy wars. There's consequences. But when it comes to fucking video games, dude, yeah, bring back exclusives and whatnot, because those sorts of fanboy wars do add personality, and at the end of the day, they are kind of meaningless, but they're meaningless in that fun, irreverent way.
Nintendo's book and started doing the state of plays, and and now there's like no real major face to PlayStation. PlayStation is just a fucking entity, which is something that you also see with Nintendo as well. Like, Nintendo has faces, and they have a lot of very iconic people related to that company. Most of them are developers that kind of turn...
Yeah, you can talk shit on Nintendo all you want. You can come at them for being litigious assholes. You can come at them for being like money-grubbing dickheads, anti-consumer. But you can't deny they know how to build a brand. They know how to be recognizable. Like, there's no console wars anymore. People look at Nintendo, they think Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, Smash Bros. Like, Nintendo just got IP after IP after IP, and they dominate in brand recognition. So, again, ain't above criticism. They do, excuse me, some scummy shit, but they know how to make fans.
Into like more so figureheads at the company, but Nintendo has also been going in that direction as well, where they don't really want to lean into focusing so much on their presidents or the super big business guys there. Like, those guys kind of take more of a back seat now, which is fine. I mean, I don't need Doug Bowser patronizingly pretending to tell me how much he cares about the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake on Switch 2. I mean, we're getting a little far away from the point. So,
well, so Ego says, yeah, Nintendo fans are a lovely bunch. Look, here's the dealio. You can call them toxic fans or whatnot. I'll default to the Henry Cavill argument, dude. Passionate. They passionate. Like, yeah, it might be annoying seeing people glaze Nintendo over and over and whatnot and say ridiculous shit, but it's fun and it's funny. And at the end of the day, it's kind of irrelevant because, like, again, back to my politics example, there's no real stakes at the end of the day. I like seeing Nintendo fans go to fucking war with Sony ponies and fucking Xbox and whatnot. Shit, I like seeing Nintendo fans go to war with each other. Like, as a Nintendo fan who kind of rejects the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom method of Zelda, I like going to war with these new-gen Zelda fans who never fucking played Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker and being like, you babies need to shut the fuck up and sit down, the big boys are talking. It's fun.
to kind of bring things back a little bit, this overall shift with these companies feels much more business-oriented. And not to say that they've never been like that. Honestly, them showboating their presidents and big business guys in front of everybody created more of a parasocial relationship, if anything. Which, I mean, to be fair, it was kind of a business decision to create this kind of weird parasocial bond between the video game fan and the CEOs like Reggie Fils-Aimé and Jack Tretton. making me feel like it's just like, oh man, they're cracking jokes on stage.
Yeah, but no, I don't, like, again, specifically with Reggie, there's a reason that, when did Reggie leave Nintendo? It's been literal years. When did Reggie, Fisame, however you say it, leave Nintendo? 2019, right? It's been 7 years since there's a reason the Fisame era, even when Nintendo wasn't doing good, people loved Reggie. It's because Reggie had personality. And adding that personality added a sense of, like, fun amongst the fans. Like, that's... When Reggie was there, he was this cool, hip dude. He signified a new generation of Nintendo. And even when Nintendo was down in the dumps, you could see Reggie just swagger out on stage, all smiles and shit, ready to talk some ridiculous shit. Bro teamed up with the Robot Chicken crew for Nintendo Directs. Like, I liked that. There was a sense of community because of that.
Just like me. I love this company. Fast forward to the PS5 era where you had Jim Ryan, who actively looked at fucking Gran Turismo on PS1 and said, who the fuck would ever want that? I don't fucking like this shit. I have a new Nintendo of America CEO, and we're not going to hear from her at all, I guarantee.
Man, I need to watch Smash's video on this broad. She concerning as fuck, dude. Like, I'm not super up to date on her, but she got me worried. Women in power, bro. Don't like it.
You that. Because in my eyes, these companies are kind of just moving towards, if it don't make us money, why the fuck are we gonna do it? Which is why we were talking about next gen, even when it doesn't feel like that makes any fucking sense to do so. You gotta keep coming out with brand new hardware, and I get it, we gotta keep pushing technology forward, but...
Zero for another 5-banger! At least the remastered version of Quake and Quake 2 was free if you had them, versus Nintendo don't. Sega does what Nintendo don't. Look, my favorite my favorite console of all time will always be the Sega Dreamcast. While I am a Nintendo fan in terms of the modern context, my heart will always be a Sega kid, bro. Always be a Sega kid. Hence the reason I use so many Sonic clips. Shout out. Speaking of, let's do another Sonic clip.
There's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, you touch them back.
Shout out. Thank you so much for the 5-banger, homie.
When the technology is getting pushed forward and it costs a piss ton of money to produce, and the results really aren't that much better than what we're already getting out of a PS5, that's when I feel like they need to sit down and get their priorities in check. Across the board, in the holiday season of 2025, video game hardware was not selling all too well, and I think the companies will probably look at that and go, well, shit, man, we might need to move on to the next gen of hardware. And I don't think that's the problem. Do you know how many people are still playing, like, Fortnite on the original PS4? I don't think the PS5 really truly had, like, that giant surge of games that, oh, you can only play on this generation of console, and this is a complete must-have. I think when Grand Theft Auto 6 launches, that's going to be a different story, but... you know what, that's going to be in, like, I don't know, when the PS7 launches. But even mentioning that, I think that brings...
Yeah, but even then, like, ain't no argument that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be, like, the biggest game of all time in the history of ever. Unfucking fortunately. It's going to normalize the $100 game. Unfucking fortunately. But by the same token, it's going to be a PS5 exclusive for a year, and then go to PC, where it's going to be objectively better by every fucking metric. Like... who gives a shit? Is anyone in chat, like, let me know, any of you guys in chat, do you give a fuck about Grand Theft Auto 6 on PS5? Are you gonna buy it? Let me know if you're gonna buy it, and let me know specifically if you're gonna buy it day one, versus let me know if you just don't give a shit. D-Stock says no, Nacho Ninja says no, Thalo Green says nope, Patrick Rossi says nope, Sleepy Nova says nope, Alex Darby says never going to buy that game. Zitzel says nope, don't care. Patrick Rock says I'm not interested in Rockstar. ABF, they want people to buy it on PS5 and PC. And the people that will buy it on PC will wait a year and they'll have a much better time with it. Zexel says nope. Randall says don't care about Grand Theft Auto 5. St. Hugo says never. Nobody, dude, literally nobody in chat. Sebrew says maybe when it's on PC. Maybe when it's on PC. Mr. Kruger says, nah, GTA 5 burned me. Sir Lurkington got the same opinion as me. Haven't cared for GTA since San Andreas. Yeah, dude, to me, GTA died after the PS2. I don't like GTA 4 or 5. I don't give a fuck. To me, GTA died after PS2. Butter Rain of Gold says, I will never buy PlayStation again. Abomination Agent says, Red Dead is superior, baby. I have an entire chat right now saying they don't give a fuck about GTA 6. Based.
Up another massive problem with this generation. Development times are getting way too long and games are costing way too much to make. And bringing in a next-gen console...
Games costing way too much to make is entirely self-inflicted. Entirely they did this to themselves. Ubisoft having 5,000 fucking employees, they did this to themselves. You know what? Expedition 33 didn't even cost, if I recall, 10 milli to make. Off 33 devs, you know, plus some outsourced teams or whatever. The point is, this is a self-inflicted wound. Get fucked.
Things are just going to get even worse. Game development time and costs have reached absurd levels. And I think it just gets to a point where I look at a lot of the games, a lot of the AAA games, even AA games releasing for the current generation of consoles. And, you know, to act like we're not getting fantastic games is, you know, just a lie. We've had some incredible releases this generation so far. But I'm going to be honest, a lot of the games that are releasing and the games that are taking so damn long all look and play so fucking similarly to games that we got 5 years ago.
Exactly, because it turns out when you don't have limitations, like they had on the PS1 and the PS2 and the SNES and all that shit, and you don't have devs that have to actually be creative and work around those limitations, like The Fog and Silent Hill 2, turns out you get generic fucking slop that doesn't goddamn matter. Nobody gives a shit.
Ghost of Yotei is really cool, but it's pretty much just more of Ghost of Tsushima. Then we had Spider-Man 2, which it's just like I enjoyed what I played, but like I still haven't finished that game because it's just like I didn't really feel a huge drive. Like I'm just like I've played this game basically twice before. Yes, this is more technically impressive, but it's kind of it just feels like more of the same. Even with Nintendo, when Tears of the Kingdom took literally like 6 years to release after Breath of the Wild, and it's just like, yeah, it made sense. There was a lot of under the hood stuff going on with that game, but it's also like, damn, this game took this long and it looks and runs the damn same.
Look, I enjoy my time with Tears of the Kingdom. Hell, I've beaten it twice, actually. Every now and again, I get the hankering to go back to it, and then I was like, let's see what's on Steam. The only time I get the hankering to go back to Tears of the Kingdom is when I'm listening to Legend of Zelda retrospectives or whatever on YouTube. And then rather than actually going back to Tears of the Kingdom, I just pop on a different game on Steam while I listen to the Zelda retrospective.
We had Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok. Yes, these are fantastic games, but I feel like this generation has felt like it hasn't even really gotten started.
I also love how, like, this video is titled Say No to Next Gen. I really want y'all to think about this. This video is titled Say No to Next Gen. And he's only talking about PlayStation. He's barely mentioned Xbox. Why? Xbox probably dead, right? If they have another console, that's a big ass if. If they have another console, it will be their last. It will absolutely be their last. They aren't even worth discussing when talking about a video titled Say No to Next Gen.
Because a lot of the games that are releasing here are just kind of like more of the same from what we got from the previous generation. Hell, even a game like Astrobot in 2024, like Game of the Year, I love Astrobot. But also, that game is so goddamn similar to not only Astro's Playroom, the free pre-installed game with the PS5, but also the original Astrobot VR game. And of course, that's to be expected, but Astrobot Rescue Mission VR on PS4's PSVR, literally...
Seriously, why do I have to pretend that emulated Switch games at 60 FPS don't exist? It's not that people don't pretend they don't exist. I don't know why you would ever make that argument. Fucking Kotaku got blacklisted by Nintendo for telling people how to pirate Tears of the Kingdom for PC 3 days before it even fucking launched. But by and large, when I play a Nintendo game, I want to play it on Nintendo hardware. If it's current gen. Now, I agree with you, if you own the game, it's fine to emulate it. I agree with that completely. But, like, by and large, if I'm buying a Nintendo Switch game, or any Nintendo game that's in current hardware, I want to play it on the console or on the hardware it's native to. That's my personal preference.
Beat for beat follows so much of what Astrobot PS5 did. In addition to Astro's Playroom being obviously like pretty much the foundation for what Astrobot PS5 is. Not saying anything about the quality of Astrobot. And also most of the people I think that played Astrobot PS5 didn't even play Astrobot Rescue Mission on PSVR back in the day. But still, I'm just trying to make the point that, like, this generation, while it has gotten started and it has been going on for 6 years now, a lot of the big games that are releasing aren't really pushing boundaries like mad. Like, it feels like we're just kind of getting a lot of the same franchises and a lot of the same styles of games over and over again. That doesn't mean that things are like, oh, bad or anything. But when we take a look at the Xbox 360 era, we were getting literally like trilogies and then some from a lot of franchises, like Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, Gears of War 1, 2, 3, and Judgment, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, all within like 2-3 years of each other. And I think it's just
Right. Because we had competent devs that knew how to develop a fucking game. That's why you're able to get them within just 1 to 2, maybe 3 years of each other. Because they knew how to fucking develop games. They were competent. You had a bunch of sweaty, greasy dudes that actually gave a fuck about the medium instead of some DEI hire that got their position because of the color of their skin or whether they like to fucking munch rugs. Like, it really is that simple. People can complain, and I've made this point many a time, and I'll continue to make it. People can bitch and moan about DEI in the games. Yo, why is there this ugly-ass black woman here in this fucking game when it takes place in medieval Europe? And those are fine complaints to have. But the real problem with DEI isn't in what you see on the screen. It's what's going on behind the fucking scenes.
making it harder to be super excited when we have to wait 5 years for the next game in a franchise compared to 2 years. You know, and it makes sense. I'm not saying that, oh, these game developers need to work faster or anything, you know. I think a lot of developers already work hard enough. I think these generations...
No, it's not that they do need to work faster, but that starts with hiring people that actually have the drive and the skills and the passion and the care and the consistency that working faster is just an innate capability of them.
Just need to be longer at this point, because a game developer is only going to get like 1 or 2 games out a generation. Or I think a lot of these projects need to...
Yeah, it's saying he was correct. Again, that's why I was saying, like, the over-reliance on, like, these massive... the bloat within the industry. Don't forget the corporate problem on top. Even a cover font doesn't get done without needing to cross like 200 desks. The bureaucracy in the game industry is just, it is maddening.
Slim the hell down. They need to trim the fat. Because I think it's obvious shorter dev times are possible. It can be done. You look at what Insomniac's able to do with Spider-Man PS4 releasing in 2018, and then Spider-Man Miles Morales releasing in 2020. Now, Miles Morales is more of kind of like standalone expansion slash...
Yeah, it's glorified DLC. Call it what it is. It's fucking glorified DLC.
Side story where it's much shorter than a big AAA release. It obviously reuses a ton of assets, but overall, like...
Good! Good! Stop being afraid to reuse assets. Asset reuse is great. Some of the best games in the history of gaming reused assets. Alright? Fucking Ocarina of Time... Majora's Mask came out within a fucking year. Majority reused assets. One of the most memorable games in the entire Zelda franchise. One of the fucking best. Because when they reused assets, as good game devs, they did it creatively. Jak and Daxter, guess what? Jak 2 reused a lot of assets. But by God, could they not be more different games? And did it propel the series to all new heights? Doom 2. Again, we can go on and on. Reusing assets is fine if you're not a lazy piece of shit.
I thought that game came out pretty damn good. Yeah, it was shorter, but it's also like, I kind of want a shorter game from time to time. Sue me. Yeah, I'm willing to bring legal proceedings into this discussion. But I think a lot of game studios are at a point where they don't really want to take a lot of risks. I think development costs have gone so damn high that a lot of these companies are going like, well, we just need to put out what works and put a shit ton of money into that. And then just hope it sells 40 million copies. So then, of course, you have the live service initiative where all of these games need to just live on for years and years and years. And I'm just like, this is getting fucking boring and it's unsustainable. And I just don't really see what a next-gen console...
And I'm glad it's unsustainable. Burn it to the fucking ground. Because we got indie. We got AAA. Let me show y'all something. Let me show y'all a little... AAA, I mean AA. Let me show y'all a little something. Indie game right here. Now, to be fair, this game kind of fucking sucked. But I played it 10 hours total to get the fucking plat, because I had to play through it 3 times, because it's a buggy fucking mess. Indie game. Fucking loved it. Recently started Gravity Rush. Enjoying it. Clash Artifacts Chaos. Now, I don't know if this qualifies as indie or not, because it's like made by the people that made like Styx, if I recall. But it's still an interesting fucking game. I loved the hell out of this, dude. 27 hours. Got the plat on this. Fucking loved it. Let's see. What are some others that I've recently played that I've really enjoyed that are from the indie side of things? Let's see. Let's just stay into my recent. Keep scrolling. Dude, Shipwreck 64. Shipwreck 64. This game was an analog horror video game. It was unintuitive, the controls were wonky, and it was all by design to evoke the old Nintendo 64 feelings while also being like this analog horror game. You had to like go to outside websites to find clues and shit. You had to go to unlisted YouTube videos. It was awesome. Trust me, we'll be fine with just AA. We'll be fine with just AA and indie games. We don't need AAA. Let them fucking burn.
Is gonna do to just tantalize me. With the Xbox Series X and PS5, ray tracing was kind of shown as like, oh, this is the next big step for graphics. And I don't give a fuck about it. So yes, I mean, like, I can see ray tracing. I can understand that, like, oh yeah, you know, that looks really nice, I guess. But like, the best ray tracing isn't even like, you don't even notice it. Oh, just really good reflect.
When when I get a game, whatever the default is for ray tracing is what I leave it as. Hey, no, Rebel Overlord, here's the dealio. I'm gonna explain this. It says, what the fuck, my yandere is a Futanari. People gift me games all the time during streams as jokes, right? I get a lot of Fuda games as a joke. Notice how I've never played it. I'm gonna vindicate myself right now. Yeah. No. I accepted it because it was a joke. Notice how there is no, like, it doesn't show anything about time played because I've never fucking played it. Alright? I've never fucking played it. I get these as a joke all the time. Like, Monkey Splash was gifted to me as a joke. Let's see. What's another one? I get these. Bunker with a Femboy. Never actually been fucking played, right? It's just add to the library, nothing else. Motherfuckers send me this shit as a joke. But the good shit that I'm getting gifted, I do play. By the way, I totally forgot. I was gifted. I'm gonna accept this right now. Yo, shout out to Mr. Rouge. Blindness over here. I was gonna call this out on stream, and I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. The Lego Batman Trilogy Pack. Legend. Thank you. Absolutely appreciate the gift, homie. Absolutely appreciate the gift. Thank you oh so much. But yeah. Anyway, that was being said about ray tracing. Whatever the default for ray tracing is, I leave it. I leave it. Like, whatever if the gameplay has ray tracing default on, okay. If the default is off, okay. I never even adjust it because I don't fucking care. Could not give a fuck less about ray tracing.
Reflections, all of that, and like when ray tracing is turned off, like I don't even really notice that it's gone. If technology like this is costing millions of dollars, not only on the development end of things, but also to produce hardware that's capable of producing graphics like that, that's not worth it. And I think games are at a point where if we can hit 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, I think that that's as good as things really need to get. Yes,
Agreed.
you could do 120 frames per second, but I'm not currently really at the state where 120 frames really does much for me. Yes, it feels even better than 60 frames per second, but I think 60 is like where a game truly feels great. And I think anything more than that can be overkill. It can definitely be nice, but I don't think it's necessarily necessary most of the time. Now, I've definitely accepted the 4K revolution. I definitely prefer games running in 4K compared to 1080p, but even then, a lot of times games running at 1080p, they still look great. Like 1080p is still a good resolution, but 4K is definitely where things are pretty much like perfect. And they tried to make 8K work. The PS5 console originally launched with an 8K logo on the box. Probably because in 2020, Sony was like, well, that's the next step. It's 8K. We're going to do 8K. We're going to try to sell 8K TVs. But then, like, nobody bought 8K TVs. 8K TVs are barely in production.
To the point where they removed it from the box. I don't know if he's going to cover that or not. And maybe he will. But it is worth noting. Sony flat out fucking removed 8K from the... I think they had 2 games total that released in 8K. Hold on, I could be wrong. How many PS5 games released supporting 8K? Only a very small number of games would support... roughly, okay, 3 to 5. No Man's Sky, Gran Turismo, F124 have confirmed 8K capabilities, with the Taurus being an early exception on the base model. So yeah. And Callisto Protocol. Great. Awesome. Nobody gives a fuck
anymore, even though they tried selling them, because 8K TVs were stupid expensive, and in practice, nobody could tell a goddamn difference. The only way you're really gonna notice any difference between 4K and 8K is if your TV is literally like...
Zexel says, I remember when 640p was wild. Same, bro. Same. And it's funny, because so when the PS3 released, right? PS3 released, and you could play games in 1080p. And we had a TV that could use 1080p, but out the box, it was defaulted at, I believe, 640. Maybe even less. May have been 380 or whatever. But I believe it was 640. And my dad was playing Dragon Age Origins. And he's playing through it, and he's got like 20 hours in the game at this point. And I remember him being like, why does this not look good? It's the PS3. What, like, he was trying to rationalize why, even though he loved the game, it didn't look right. And he checked the TV settings. He was like, oh. And he changed it to 1080p. And the inherent massive difference that we saw just off the bat was fucking mind-blowing. We, like, sat in awe of just watching my dad continue to play Dragon Age Origins in 1080p. Just like, it could have looked like this the whole time. It was fucking crazy, dude.
200 inches. And even then, I'm sure you won't see that much of a difference. And the fact that 8K hasn't really been, like, adopted by anybody, it's just this giant cycle. Well, nobody wants an 8K TV because nobody's producing 8K video content or 8K gaming content on consoles. But nobody's doing that because nobody's buying 8K TVs. But nobody's buying 8K TVs because there's no fucking reason to buy an 8K TV. 4K is perfectly fine. And yes, I think it's good to keep striving for better, you know, like try to make...
I don't think that it's good to strive for better. Like, sometimes you plateau, and that's fine. Rather than trying to make things better, you try to make things more cost-effective, more convenient, you know, things to that effect. We don't... At some point, the minimal gains are severely outweighed by the price limitations of the average individual. I'm sorry, I don't see a reason.
Better technology, make better products overall, but it's to a point where I think like them pushing forward and trying to make better products, better technology for these consoles is more so to just sell us a new console rather than, oh, we have an inherent need for new hardware. So what should really happen here? Because they're going to make a PlayStation 6. And it really sucks because the only way I really see a path forward is the traditional console getting more stuff like what we got with the PS5 Pro, but more frequently throughout the generation. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying I want that, but this is what I think is going to end up happening because it ends up making more and more sense for a lot of these console manufacturers to just pretty much make their console basically a PC with a console.
Yes. Hence the GameCube. Hence the Steamcast. Exactly.
User interface, because I'm sure it'll make things easier for developers to pretty much just make a PC build for their games. And then it's just like, oh, it'll work on the new Xbox, it'll work on the new PlayStation, and we can just slide the graphics up and down based on which model do you have. Do you have the PlayStation 6.1 or do you have the
exactly
PlayStation
what it is, Tiger King.
6.2? Well, the 0.2, you can, it'll run a little better on that, and it'll look a little better on that, but it'll still run on the 6.1.
Better yet, rather than just start making your consoles like PCs, hey, plebs, get a fucking PC. Now, admittedly, right now, that's harder to justify and say given what's going on with RAM and all that. But up until about 5 months ago, bitch, you could just got a fucking PC. Like,
might not work as well. But I think that's the future that we're heading.
I'd rather die before I see PlayStation turn into a piece of shit. Homie. Best break out the rickety stool and rope because PlayStation has already turned into a piece of shit. In fact, they did a while ago.
Towards. And it's not that, like, that would be absolutely awful or anything. But if we're going to start getting yearly revisions of these consoles, well, at that point, I think it would be nice if you could just swap out the hardware inside, kind of like a PC. But at that point, then why the f do you have a console then? Just get a PC. But I think a setup where things can be scaled very easily does make sense because, obviously
PCs are still accessible. People drop thousands on hobbies. Apparently PCs are too expensive for them. So here's where I think that this is, and like, I get what you're saying, but I disagree in that PCs and anything tech-based is a little bit different. Because of the rapid expansion of technology, like, within 6 months, a lot of stuff's already outdated to some metric. 6 months to a couple years. It's different than investing in something like, as a hobby, like, let's say, comic book collecting. Comic book collecting, the barrier to entry is so much smaller. You can go search for backlog comics that, like, they're a few cents to a few bucks a piece, and then maybe every now and again you could drop, a couple $100 on, like, a key issue that, you drop a few $100 on first appearance of Wolverine and the Incredible Hulk 182 or whatever it was. Like, the hobbyist mentality for non-tech related things, again, as somebody who, like, collects, and much less now so, but still does Magic the Gathering, there's the functionality of Magic the Gathering cards when buying old cards will still always be there because there's a bunch of different ways to play the game. There's a bunch of different, the secondary market is always in flux in a way that usually can benefit the person doing the collecting. Like, the reason that PC being so expensive is a barrier to entry is because this is so expensive now. Maybe it'll be cheaper in a year, but when it's cheaper in a year, the next thing is so far outclassed it. It just, the rate at which that sort of hobby changes doesn't scale amongst non-tech based hobbies. A desktop PC has a lifespan of 5+ years. I'm not disagreeing with that. But when you're looking at, well, that's not a hobbyist. So, my PC is about 10 years old at this point, like 7 to 10 years old. If you're, what a hobbyist does is they are frequently doing the next new thing. Hobbyists invest in, like, oh, every new Magic the Gathering set coming out, got to get all the sets, or at least the key cards out of the set, stuff like that. Comic books, you got to get all the variant covers, stuff like that. You've got a device built for longevity. That is more for the function of somebody who isn't a hobbyist. That's for more practicality. So hobbyists often don't, whatever your hobby is, oftentimes isn't necessarily practical. Now, there's a few things that are that hobbyists can get into that are practical by default. Like PCs are practical by default. You're a gun guy. In fact, this should work even better for you, ABF, because you're a gun guy. Guns are practical by default. Spending thousands of dollars to make the most advanced, badass competition shooter gun, that's not practical for its conventional use. It's practical for its specialized use. Most people don't go into the specializations unless they're full-on hobbyists.
Obviously, Sony and Microsoft have seen how successful Nintendo has been with the Switch, how excited people are about the handheld PC market with the Steam Deck and whatnot. And Xbox already partnered with Asus to do the ROG Xbox Ally, which is basically like their version of a handheld. But the way Xbox does things, they're definitely just kind of going like, oh, we'll license our name for this, and there we go. We tried a handheld. Good for us. But in contrast, it's pretty obvious that Sony is going to take another whack
later,
at
Randall.
the handheld market and do something kind of along the lines of the Switch, or at least a new handheld that'll...
People act like PC gaming is out of their reach. In reality, you can get it for less than $2K if you don't listen to people say, no, and I agree with that, ABF. I do. I 100% agree. I'm not saying that PC is inherently like more expensive or whatnot. A PC will pay for itself, especially if you're a gamer. Yeah, you might be spending $2K, but then you will inherently be getting like so much more in terms of savings and stuff after like all the Steam sales, things to that effect. So I don't think it's out of reach. What I do think is the case is that given our current economic state, a lot of people just aren't in a position to be able to, without saving for such a long period of time, get their PC. And then once they're able to do that, things have already evolved so far technologically. It's this hamster wheel of economics. But I mean, I do agree with you. I think the PC is absolutely manageable, absolutely financially viable, if people invest in it and want to do it. Give me one moment. I have to step away for a brief second. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. The Steam Machine is going to be interesting when it comes out. I completely agree. I think the Steam Machine is going to be like a complete and utter game changer. I can't wait for the Steam Machine to, because I've had a huge, me and Cassie have gotten into huge arguments about this. I think the Steam Machine is the gateway for people to get off consoles. It is absolutely the gateway for people to get off consoles.
Play kind of the modern games, but at lower settings, or maybe it'll only play PS5 games and not the brand new PS6 games. But then again, like I said, the PS6 will probably have like 5-6 years of cross-gen releases. I don't know. But I think it makes logistical sense for the next gen to be kind of set up like that. And I'm only saying logistically based on what these companies are already trying to do. Because for me personally, while I see some benefits to this, I also feel like this kind of takes away a lot of like what makes gaming kind of special. When I was a kid, my console was like, this is like my thing, this is my toy, this is where I go for my fun times. And now I don't know, it's just turning the
dude, when I'd gotten consoles in the past, you know, I'd gotten the SNES. That was my first console. So in my mom's house I had SNES, and my dad's house I had Genesis. I actually don't remember which I got first. But like I loved playing them. You know, my dad had a PS1. I loved playing that. You know, the Dreamcast was, again, to this day is my favorite console. When the Xbox, GameCube, and PlayStation era came out, PlayStation 2, my dad got the PS2. At my mom's house we had the Xbox, but I remember for my birthday, I got the GameCube, and the GameCube was mine. Like the GameCube was, this is Leon's GameCube, and I had never felt so attached and in love with a console. Even though I like the Dreamcast more, even though I have, you know, more reverence for the Dreamcast and its history, and it is my favorite. In that moment as a kid, the GameCube was a game changer.
Console market into basically just the computer market or the smartphone market. And I'm not gonna argue with that being like, well, that's not fun and I don't
and real quick to answer what you're saying, Ravnad, I don't think that no. PCs are not too expensive for most people. Most people just don't understand PC versus console marketing. Like that they are completely different things. People have been conditioned to believe that consoles are more financially viable. That is, in my opinion, completely untrue.
I want that. I want my consoles to just be my consoles for 10 years. Like, I understand things need to evolve, but I just find a lot of things that are trying to be done with video games to just not work the best with how video games work. Overall, I don't know. Because if we're just going to keep on making more powerful and powerful and powerful hardware, I don't think any game is actually going to take some time and just stop to smell the roses and actually make the most out of a lot of pieces of hardware. You look at what they were able to do with the PlayStation 3 near the end of its lifespan, and some late PS3 games, damn, man, I mean, they just look like low-resolution PS5 games sometimes. And that hardware debuted in 2006. And graphically, yeah, things keep on looking nicer, but the amount that we're able to see things improve, I mean, it's the law of diminishing returns. I mean, we've been at this point for years now where, like, how much better can things get? Yeah, if you compare certain things side by side, you can see, oh yeah, things have gotten better. But in my opinion, are you really gonna look at something like, let's say, Demon Souls, the Demon Souls remake on PS5?
Exactly. ABF is 100% correct. PS3 was $5.99 at launch. In fact, and that was in 2006. So let's adjust for some inflation. Inflation calculator. I believe it launched in November of 2006. So we're going to go to November 2006. And we're going to do, let's do 600 to make it even. $964. Effectively a thou wow, right? Effectively a thou wow. You were buying, now to be fair, I got my PS3 for $100, damn near at launch, because I bought it from a cocaine dealer who needed his fix, and he was just willing to sell his fucking PS3 for $100, because he needed to pay off some debts or get more coke or whatever it was. That neither here nor there. Anyway, most people paid what is effectively $1,000 today for a fucking PlayStation 3 when it launched. Comparatively, double that, pay $2,000 for a PC. But then you get every game ever in the history of the world, and you get it at either free, because of emulation, or far reduced prices because of Steam sales. Like, guys, PC is not financially unattainable. There's some issues right now due to the RAM and stuff. I ain't gonna knock that. Like, that's a problem. But by and large, your PC will pay for itself way quicker. Because you can also do a lot more than just play games, by the way. You can do a lot more. If you incorporate your PC into your daily fucking life, your efficiency will skyrocket. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, you have just so much more avenues for I mean, literally anything. The entire world runs online nowadays. The limitations are basically gone on PC. Whereas on the PlayStation, bro, you buy in $60, $70 games. Maybe they go on sale. They'll throw you a free game once a month if you pay monthly for PlayStation Pro. Right, and AJ says yes. It's a machine that will allow you to do so much more. So, like, yeah, you can say, oh, PC is so much more expensive. Well, like, if you're just looking at hard numbers, that's what it looks like. But there's got to be a value proposition. And the value proposition is double the price, but you can do anything and everything in the world that you need to do in your daily life. Plus, you can play games. Your game library is far more expansive, far cheaper, so it pays for itself faster. There's no reason for anybody to believe the lie that PC is out of reach.
And you're going to go, wow, things have really improved on the PS5 since then. Like, no, that game still looks like it could have released this year or next year or the year after that or the year after that, and you'd still be like, damn, this is a good looking game. So while you can keep pushing things forward, that doesn't mean you need to. But it's obvious these companies know that new hardware is exciting to some extent. So, I mean, even Microsoft is going like, guys, don't you worry, we're working on new hardware. And then everybody's going like, what the fuck are you talking about? You haven't even done shit with your current hardware.
Sir Lordington said it best. Yeah, you pay more up front to save way more in the long run. Exactly.
And I'm like, oh, silly me. Time is just going by fast. I'm getting older, so I don't realize how much we've truly gotten out of the Xbox Series X. Like, we would have gotten that Perfect Dark reboot, even though that was announced in 2020. And then
that's why I hate the inflation metric. It presumes people would pay that much. She paid 600 because it was 600. How much is at the time? Okay. Inflation is a perfectly valid metric to use because when people talk about prices now, they don't understand the devaluing of the money that's happened in that 20 fucking years. And you need to have that frame of reference. $600 in 2006 was fucking insane. There's a reason the PlayStation 3 struggled to sell at launch. Because $600 then was still fucking expensive. PlayStation 3 struggle bust for like 2 fucking years before it finally found footing. Yeah, $600 in 2006 would buy you a running car. ABF is exactly correct. The idea of hating to use inflation is ridiculous because we're comparing the prices of PCs now to the prices of PS3s back then. Well, for that to be analogous, we have to use what the value of the PC would be in today's pricing to compare it to PC. You are fucking insane if you think that not using inflation would be the way to make this argument. That's retarded. Prop out for 250 says make it a solid 20. Well, thank you. Shout out. I appreciate you, girly. That's fair, but too often people use inflation metric even with $200 consoles. No, that's a stupid issue. They should be doing that. Yes, if you were going to look at thing costs this much now, thing cost that much back then, you need a frame of reference for what it would cost now. Inflation is a thing that happens. The value of money gets less and less, so you need to be able to conceptualize the disparity between the values over any given course of time. Like that, you shouldn't have an issue with that because it makes every sense of logistical sense. If you don't like that, you basically what you're saying is I don't like hearing the truth.
We finally got gameplay like 4 years later, and then 5 years later they canceled it. But hey, the concept of that was cool. The promise was enough for me to buy the Xbox. And then there was Contraband, which was announced at E3 2021, and then we saw nothing from that game. Then it got canceled in 2025. You can play Super Lucky's Tale from the Xbox One on your Xbox Series X. Who am I kidding? This is why I'm saying no to next gen. I don't want this generation to end because it's just that fucking awesome.
All right.
And there it is, folks. There it is. Say no
Kids.
to next gen. Like, there's... I cannot understand the concept of people who would be willing to buy consoles in this market at this point. Like, dude, your PS4 still completely relevant. Your PS4 is still completely fucking relevant if you can't afford a PC. There is nothing, I mean literally nothing, that a PS5 can offer you that justifies the cost of a PS5 that you can't just do on your PS4 while you save up for a goddamn PC.